Now, speaking of overt government political reprisals, do we talk about Nick Fuentes and apparently being added to the no-fly list?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know Fuentes well. I know he's a kid mostly. He just says some controversial things now and then. But the no-fly list, clearly they've been expanding it. They were putting a bunch of people on it after January 6th who weren't even at the Capitol. And Fuentes was there, but he wasn't, to my knowledge, at the Capitol or inside the Capitol at all. Not subject to any criminal investigation. But this was the dangerous ramifications of the Patriot Act and all of its implications. And some of us said so at the time.
So, and we'll back it up just a bit for anybody who doesn't know. I didn't know who Nick Fuentes was. Full disclosure. Now, I know now that I knew who he was because I saw at one point in time, it was a video of Ben Shapiro being, I won't say accosted, but approached by someone on the street saying, let's debate. And Shapiro's with his wife and kid. And I didn't know who the person was. I didn't know it was Nick Fuentes at the time. And I just thought what I thought of that video. I have also seen other videos of Nick Fuentes, not knowing who he was, and it all came together as I was looking into it this weekend. He's, a lot of people are not going to like him. He says incredibly, he's young, like you said, Robert. Young, yeah, I'm not saying controversial for the sake of it. He says controversial things. He says shocking, upsetting, offensive things. And if you don't like it, don't listen to him. Now, he says things about, white nationalism, that America should be an ethno state, that there's already, more non-whites than whites, and it's a problem. He says things which a lot of people are going to find objectively offensive. Oh, yeah. Good. Don't listen to him. Apparently, though, he has been added to the no-fly list. Now, this is on his word. I don't know that there's any evidence to this, and looking into what the no-fly list is, apparently there is no concrete evidence. I don't think they send you an email. He says he was told he's on a no-fly list. Believe him or not, that is actually the secondary issue, whether or not he as an individual was. The no-fly list is the shocking thing that we are now realizing. So give us a history of the no-fly list. I know what it is roughly, but I think you'll be able to describe it better, how it came to be, what the concerns were at the time, and how they've materialized over time.
Well, back when the ACLU was actually the ACLU, they used to fight aggressively against no-fly list and won several cases documenting that it's a constitutional rights violation. So what happens is the FAA or someone in law enforcement, the federal law enforcement, puts you on a list that does not allow you to get on a plane, period. So that if it's your name and your identity, you're put in the system so that you can't book a flight. So Fuentes can find out by just booking a flight and trying to board one, and he'll find out whether he's on a no-fly list or not. I do know people that were put on it because there were people who could not leave D.C. who had already booked flights, who were denied the opportunity to get on those flights because they were told by January 7th that they were on the list. A little bit curious how some of those names got so quickly on such a list. Might raise questions about what exactly happened on January 6th. But you'll have to watch a hush-hush at vivabarneslaw.locals.com for that expose.
Hold on a second. Do it again, and I'm not going to make a noise.
No problem. If you want to know what really happened on January 6th, or at least an alternative interpretation thereof, then you can watch it at Hush Hush, which the playlist is keyed and right up at the top and pinned at vivabarneslaw.locals.com.
Perfect.
But however it is that you're just put on a list, you're not told you're put on a list. That's the due process problem they've challenged before. They've said because this is denying you a right. It's to a certain degree, it's a property right or a liberty interest under the Fifth Amendment. If it's federal, it's state, it's the 14th Amendment. And there's also a constitutional right to travel. In fact, one of the concerns at the time of the founding of the founders was making sure you had a right to travel between the states. And so you had a right to travel. That's the reason why the Dunn decision versus involving the state of Tennessee, it's why that no state can require you to register to vote for the presidential election more than 30 days prior to the election, is because of your right to travel, your interstate right to travel. So they have various excuses in the airline context that they can get away with to some degree, but not to the degree of a complete ban, especially a complete ban without notice. So if what he should probably do, or anyone who believes they're on a no-fly list should do, book a ticket, try to fly. And if you can't, then you have factual grounds, and then you can file a suit on rights on challenging that. And there is, again, some good case law the ACLU helped develop. And all this came about because of the Patriot Act. And you can see how it sounded appealing then, right? It was, geez, if we'd had these terrorists on a no-fly list, this couldn't have happened. That was where it started.
Thing. I didn't fully I was not conscious in 2001. I was alive, and I remember the day, and I remember the aftermath. I was not politically, legally conscious of all these things, and I suspect back then I would have supported it. I mean, I suspect back then I would have said, yeah, makes sense if you just slap a bunch of suspected threats on a list and don't let them fly. No more of these issues, without now appreciating A, administrative errors, and B, political reprisals. And but before 9/11, there was no fly list,
nothing on this scale. Nothing on this scale. It was very limited, and there was due process involved almost all the time.
So 9/11 expands it, and now
dramatically expanded it.
There are two types of no-fly lists. You have your terrorist watch list, and you have your no-fly list. And apparently, there's over 1 million people on the terrorist watch list, and under 100,000 on the no-fly list. Or am I mistaken?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure, because not everybody tries to fly. So people could be on a no-fly list and have no idea that that's the case.
And now, so when I said that, Nick Fuentes, whether or not it's true for him, it's an incidental issue, because some people are saying he might have, it was Ian Miles Chong said he might have gotten just kicked off one plane for bad behavior, and we don't know if he's on a no-fly list. Again,
but that's not usually across all airlines. That's pretty rare. If you have a problem with an airline and they get unhappy, they will prevent you from riding their planes, but not every plane. So, they're not small commuter planes, not international planes, not any plane. It would be, American Airlines will say you can't fly. Sometimes they'll put you on a no-fly list if you created such a history of problems, but then you almost always are notified of it. So and you have an opportunity usually to contest it. One of the big issues the ACLU highlighted was the utter lack of due process in these proceedings. To deprive someone, I litigated it in the tax context, where in the IRS, they used to label people illegal tax protesters, and then they treated them differently based on it, proved that they were not being given adequate notice, and it was a violation of their liberty interest. And ultimately, the IRS had to change its policies and no longer do that. They have new creative ways to try to do the same thing, but it's not the same scale. But that's something else that Biden's trying to weaponize too, is now the IRS is going to be going after people.
They're dumping a lot of money into the IRS to make sure they can go after people.
And something tells me it won't be big Democratic donors at the top of that list.
It won't be the Clinton Foundation, but it'll be Build the Wall. I wanted to bring this up. Back a few years ago, there was a case of a female architect who was foreign-born. She was on the no-fly list, sued, got off it, and the FBI reinstated her the next day. Does being on a no-fly list compromise your ability to cross a border? Because are you not creating...
Well, at least by planes, but usually the no-fly list is just planes. People can infer this if they watch the documentaries about Ed Snowden. Snowden obviously knew that the people that track things on planes aren't tracking other information. So, because he wasn't worried about where he was flying to and the rest being known to the government, which was fascinating. So there's kind of a mismatch there. There should be easy access to those resources such that if you're on no-fly list, you can't travel, period, or vice versa. But that's generally not the case.
I mean, if they basically landlock you for your whole life, if you're in America, the no-fly list,
it's a new Berlin Wall. That's what it is. A new Berlin Wall.
And now they can put foreigners on a no-fly list, but that only impacts the foreigners who are not American citizens if they want to enter into or leave the United States.
Right. Remember the left was the one arguing that people that even have connections to terrorism or in terror-oriented countries should have a right to immigrate here. But somehow, if you're on the wrong political side, you shouldn't even be able to fly within your own country.
Well, I mean, what happens hypothetically if someone gets in and then gets put on a no-fly list and can't get out? I mean, what would they have to do then? Make a petition the courts for deportation?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a functional Berlin Wall if they continue to expand its application.
What is the process to even attempt to get off a no-fly list? You have
you sue. You file suit.
Who do you sue?
It depends on who it is that you believe that puts you on there. Sometimes you sue the FBI, sometimes you sue the FAA. You sue whomever could issue the remedy for you, a relief for you in your case or your context. And he definitely can. So that's why I'd say he should get more evidence that in fact, or anyone else, get evidence that you're on such a list and then file suit to get yourself removed from it. Also, it's a reminder, everybody, that the Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act entitle you to lots of information the government has on you. I utilize it all the time for a wide range of clients in a wide range of cases, because you often find out what's really going on. And you find out what the government has on you, whether the government's been tracking you, whether the government's targeted you. You get all that information, not only what the IRS has, but any other agency has. And so they can only withhold so much. They delay a lot these days, but it's the reason why I'm doing that. It's part of what the Fed, the suit against the Federal Reserve that's coming is about, is FOIA requests that we're going to be making to them in anticipation that they refuse to do so, will file suit. So that's the other way you can also do it, is try to seek information, see if that information comes back a certain way, then file suit related to it, either on a FOIA grounds if they refuse to give it to you, or on grounds they're violating your right to travel if the information discloses that you are in fact on such a list.
Okay, well, that's a wonderful process that they make citizens go through to have basic rights of mobility.
As that Canadian cop told you, hey, as long as everybody's not in prison, we're a free country.
No, and I'm sure they're listening. They're listening in certain countries and saying, "Dude, you have the carriage in front of the horse on that one."